we're going to lose, we're going to make mistakes no matter what. But what are we going to do to get over this? And we're going to find a way to win. Building relationships in any aspect of life is important because you're able to gain an understanding of what someone is going through, not just the reason why they're behaving, but why they're behaving in that manner. Earlier in my career, I would give kids leeway. And ultimately, when I learned when you do that, it does not set them up for success because life doesn't do that. I held high expectations for them when no one else did. And I was always there for them during those tough times. Never take anything personal, as well as work hard and ensure that you build strong relationships with everyone that you meet along the way.
Welcome, everybody, to the Amanda Gunville Show. And today is so special because every parent, they hope that their child will find something that helps them grow in confidence, build meaningful relationships, and really just discover what they're capable of. And for many young people, that place is athletics. But those experiences, they don't happen by accident. No, they do not, because behind every great athletic program are incredible leaders who are intentional about creating environments where students can thrive. And today's guest, James Davis, is a high school athletic director who has spent his career helping students do exactly that. And I'm so excited to hear his perspective on leadership, belonging, and just like the lasting impact that sports can have on young people's lives. So let's jump in. Welcome, James.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. I would love to just hear your journey on how you even became an athletic director.
Well, my journey started about 14 years ago, back at home in Monrovia, California. When I graduated from college, I played college football at the University of Wyoming. I moved back home after graduating. I wasn't sure what my next steps were. So I was kind of like working overnight. I was going to school to get my master's. And then I was also coaching high school football. And the reason why I moved back home is because my daughter had passed away. It shook me to my core. So I didn't know, like I said, what my next step was going to be. So I moved back home with my mom. I was working like 3 jobs. I went back to school to get my master's. And while coaching, one of my mentors that actually coached me when I was in high school, he told me, he was like, "Hey, man, you might as well go get your teaching degree and start teaching while you're coaching." He knew what I was going through. So I went back to school and got my master's. And then I realized like, hey, I really love working in education. And then at that time, that's when I stopped coaching. And I moved here to Colorado. And, now we're here 11 years later. I've been here 11 years now.
Oh my goodness. Wow, there's so much to unpack with that. I'm first of all, I'm so sorry for your loss. That is an unimaginable thing to experience. We are not supposed to lose our children. They're supposed to lose us. So I am sorry for that. But it is
Thank you.
interesting how something that is so hard, right, can ultimately at the time, it seems terrible. It seems like the worst possible thing, but it can almost help you make that pivot into what is the most meaningful thing that could ever happen in your life, you know? Um, so
Yes.
yeah, and I'm curious, like you said that you made this transition from coaching into education because it really, you really loved it. But like what really was it about the role that drew you in originally?
Well, I would say I wasn't one of the easiest students to deal with. When I was in elementary and middle school, I gave my mom a lot of headaches, teachers as well. So, I'm familiar with working with students that could be considered difficult. And in my first position, that was like the class that I was given or the set of students that I was given. And I always thought those kids were funny. And then I also wanted, to be able to work with them and watch them grow because I knew how I was. And I knew that I would be able to, work with and deal with those students. in a respectful manner. So once I was put in that position, I loved it. It was like, I mean, I feel like some of the things that the kids would say, some of the things that the kids would do would be funny. Um, so I would just work with them on, replacing those behaviors with something positive. And once I got good at that, like I said, I realized like, hey, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Um, so eventually, I stopped coaching, and that's the work that I started doing.
Well, I'm sure you have a million of these stories, but I would love to hear an example of a student that you probably saw a little bit of yourself in, but maybe is a success story that you see today.
Yeah. One student in particular that I always think of. It wasn't in elementary or middle schools when he came in from high school. The kid had, he had a really difficult background, which is why I think that building relationships in any aspect of life is important, because you're able to gain an understanding of what someone is going through, not how not just the reason why they're behaving, but why they're behaving in that manner. Um, and this young man, when he came in, he was always fighting. He would just like snap at anyone at the drop of a dime. He was just having a really difficult time being in that setting. Both his parents had passed away within the last year. He had been moved here from a different state to live with his grandparents because of what had occurred. Um, so building a relationship with him, I gained an understanding of what he was going through. Um, and why he was behaving the way that he was behaving. A lot of times he would be a class clown in the classroom, or if someone said something mean or something he didn't like, he would just go off. And like I said, some of the things that he did or said, like, to me, it was funny. It was him trying to express himself, but it just wasn't the right time and the right setting. Um, yeah, so he had gotten into a fight in the classroom, and it was pretty bad. And a teacher was like, I no longer want this kid in my classroom. And some of the kids felt that way as well. Um, and I had a conversation with him and his sisters, and just came up with a plan on, what he can do to be successful. And ultimately, we found a sport. We found three sports that he liked. It was basketball, football, and wrestling. And basketball and football, he wasn't good at all. So he learned that really quick. But he also learned that he was really good at wrestling. Fast forward to just this past year, this was a kid that wasn't on track to graduate. He was always fighting. Teachers didn't want him in his classroom. This kid just graduated with a 3.5 GPA. Um, he won a league in wrestling. He went to state in wrestling. He finished top 10. And like he just gave me a hug the date of his graduation. And, he told me like he was just thankful for me being there for him. And I just told him that I was thankful for, his sisters and his grandparents are giving me the opportunity to work with them, because like I said, like when they come in and, they're having a hard time, and then you see them cross that finish line, I feel like, that's been my calling. And just to be able to be a part of that journey with him has been one of my favorite things, as far as like being in education. I have a lot of those stories, but that one just always sticks out to me.
Well, it's so powerful. Holy smokes. So I'm curious, now that you're in the role that you're in, you're not, I mean, you are working, I'm sure, one-on-one with kids sometimes, but for the most part, you're a level removed. So do you spend time with coaches, administration, just coaching them on how to approach kids like that?
Yeah. So before I took over the role as an athletic director, um, I was a dean for about 6 or 7 years, before I became a assistant principal, and I worked at some of the most difficult schools. And I would say that me and my teams that I've been a part of, we've done a great job as far as turning schools around. One school in particular that I was at, the previous year before I got there were about 115 fights. My first year there, we got it down to 9, and then my second year there, we got it down to 7. Um, so yeah, that was all the work that I did before being an athletic director, and it was the work that I did in the building that I was in as well. So I was over the culture team, and I was over the arts and science department. So with a school of 2,000 plus students, not everything is going to work for every student. So we work to put some things into place to make sure that all students will feel comfortable and will feel safe being in the building. So those tier one, those tier two, and those tier three things that we were able to put together ultimately helps kids be successful in the building. So some of those things that I was able to do with my team is we put tables on every floor throughout the building, and we had a dean or an adult sitting there at all times to decrease the amount of times that kids are alone when they're going to the bathrooms or going to get water. As well as we color coded all of the passes for every single floor in the building. So the first floor, let's say, would be green, the second floor would be pink, the third floor would be purple. So if you saw a kid on the second floor with the purple hall pass, you know they're on the wrong floor. So we would send them back up. So we just put those things into places to hold kids accountable, as well as to ensure they know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to be doing at all times. So yeah, I would say those are some of the things that I did as far as like before I took over the athletic role. And let's just be honest, kids don't always like the disciplinarian. So my first year, I was looked at as that person. But you know, I would always try to create and cultivate relationships, so I'm not looked at in that manner. So when I moved over to athletics, I just integrated the two. Um, I would always open up my office for a place for those students to come. So he would always, if he's frustrated, he's upset, come to my office right away. I'll give you 10 minutes and then let's talk about, you know, what's going on. And giving those kids that opportunity and that space, they always knew that you had their back, so they would come to you as opposed to acting out. So yeah, I would say I would integrate it with athletics, with the admin team, as well as working with students to for them to understand there's always a safe space for them.
What phenomenal and practical advice. I feel like anybody could take that in no matter where their school is, in what environment. I mean, and I'm actually curious, like, where did you learn how to implement some of these things? Is this just the creative genius of James, or was there some sort of training that you saw or something modeled to you in the past that gave you the ideas for color-coded floors and having adults present and things like that?
No, these were just things that, you know, over my 14 years in education, in Denver Public Schools, they always send us to training. So at those trainings, I would always take pieces and things that I'm hearing, and I would always try to bring it back. As well as we would always have teammates that would come up with these ideas. So when I was over the culture team, I wouldn't just tell all the deans what they're supposed to be doing. We would have a weekly team meeting, and I would ask for ideas of things that, you know, would make the school safer. But then also when you take a look at a school that has, you know, over 100 fights, you know, you want to look at like, how is this occurring? So when we looked at that, we wanted to make sure of proximity. So if we're in the hallways, in the bathrooms during passing period, that just decreases the opportunity that students have to engage in fights because you're always present. So, you know, just taking a look at some of those things over my 14 years and conversations with other coworkers, ultimately, you know, you would always want to put in place things that um, decrease the opportunities for those things to occur. So, like I would say, just trainings that DPS always send us to over my 11 years with them, as well as just been learning from mistakes in the building and you know, setting up with your team ways to, you know, not have those issues.
Sure, sure. And I feel like that probably translated into the way that you would, embrace those students who did make mistakes, right? Saying, "Hey, this isn't a forever mistake. This is take the 10 minutes, cool down, and then let's talk about it, and then
Yeah.
let's figure out how to not make this mistake again."
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, awesome. So, okay, now taking a step, like, globally, when you look at all of the student athletes that you've been able to work with over the past 11 years, incredible. What do you think are some of the traits that are predictors of success in life, not just sports?
I would say most no, all of those students, every single one of those students, they would ensure that they're going to and from class. They build great relationships with their teachers. Um, they're also putting in extra work outside of the hours of um, practice or as well as studying. Those kids are always seeking opportunities to be able to spend extra time within the building or seeking better opportunities or things that we can give them to support them. So, for instance, when we're talking about these student athletes, they're not just particularly focused on sports. They're also putting in time on Saturdays for SAT training, ACT training. So those kids are also getting tutoring, extra tutoring, an hour after school. So each teacher has about 30 minutes set up a day where they have tutoring, where kids are able to come in and just sit down and speak with the teachers. So those kids are taking advantage of every single opportunity that they're given, as well as ensuring that they're creating strong relationships with all the adults within the building, just to ensure that they're being set up for success throughout the entire building. So they're meeting with their counselors, they're meeting with their parents, they have tutoring with their teachers, as well as they're setting time aside to meet with the admin, as well as they're a part of something within the building. So they're a part of a club, as well as a club, they're a part of student senate. So they're just a part of the community, and they all build the community that they want to see within the school. So let's say that one of those kids play soccer. They're worried about girls flag football and how can we increase the attendance there? What can we do to ensure that everyone is supporting our girls sports as well as our boys sports? So all of those kids that you see that come through the building, that are like our top athletes as well as our top student athletes, they're all worried about the community and ways to support the community and make our school a better place.
That is incredible. You actually, answered my next question before I even got to ask it because I really wanted to understand, like, how you create this culture where students feel like they belong, whether they're the star player or the kid on the bench or whether they're in arts versus in sports, right? So it sounds like you have created this incredible culture, but where do you even start to get that? I mean, are you doing that at the beginning of the year? Like, how are you inspiring the kids to care?
I mean, that is a team effort from all admin, and I will say that it is a pretty difficult task. Um, so we do have an assistant principal that is over something along the lines of working with the students and student senate, in ways that we go about that as a team, is ensuring that during the daily announcements, those kids are being honored, giving the students an opportunity to be the ones that lead the daily announcements, as well as any of our what is it that we have, so when we have our homecoming week, all of that is being student led, and us as adults, we're helping the students manage it all, but giving the student athletes and the students an opportunity to lead all of that. And I would say it's just amazing to see how they all just fall in love with decorating the campus Monday through Friday. It's an entire week of events, giving them the opportunity to set up those events and reach out to the community, and working with them to work through all of that. So once you give them a task and work with the students, they truly fall in love with it because you're giving them the opportunity to be a leader in the building. And then on top of that, they're cultivating a life of memories of with all their peers, because that's something that's going to last forever. So like my first year to my fourth year to my fifth year, you can hear students talking about homecoming from 2 or 3 years ago, where how it was at the baseball stadium, and things along those lines.
I love that. Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like when you give a student an opportunity to lead, then it gives them purpose, right? Because so often I feel like as you're growing up, I'm actually just projecting the way I felt. Like, I didn't feel like I had control because there was always a parent telling me what to do, or or a coach or a teacher. And you want so badly to have independence, and giving the opportunity, even though it's supervised, right? And there's adults over top of it, but giving them the opportunity to lead and feel that autonomy, I could only imagine that that would give them this sense of confidence that really is so helpful. And that kind of brings me to the other topic, because you're not just dealing with students, you're not just dealing with coaches, you're dealing with parents. So, and that is, I'm sure, a
Yes.
giant spectrum of personalities,
Yes.
involvement, care,
Yes.
neglect, all of that stuff. So I'm curious, well, first, what do you think that parents care about and they shouldn't, or they don't care about and they should? Maybe that's a better question. What do you think that parents don't care about that they should?
Yeah, I would say dealing with all stakeholders and making all stakeholders are difficult. Um, Parents in particular, you saying what is it that they don't care about that they should?
Mhm.
Um, That's a difficult one because, I mean, some parents may not care about grades, but they care about, playing time, but that's not a huge issue that we deal with. I would say some of the things, that parents care about that aren't that big of a deal, sometimes are like the small things that are out of everyone's control.
Mhm.
So for instance, not being able to play on a certain field at a certain time. Um, Something along those lines. It's usually something that's out of our hands and something that we can't control. And some of the times I feel like if we had the answer to some of those things, we'd all be millionaires or billionaires. Um, but like I said, something along those lines. Just let's say because we don't in Denver, not no school has their own field. All of the fields are district fields just because of spacing. So some parents, I'll get upset emails because we played on the turf field as opposed to the city field, and that's out of my control. That's not something that we can control within athletics. That's something that's run by the district. So it's those type of conversations where we're doing with the best that we can, but at this point in time, that's not something that we could use. As well as I would say. Um, Out of state games. I would say that there are some that probably aren't in the best interest of kids. It's in the best interest of parents. And those are also conversations that we have to have. So I would say is sticking to our core values and ensuring that when we stick to our core values, is we're always doing what's best for the student athletes, not what's best for the parents.
Imagine that. Well, that I
Yeah.
feel like, okay, that's like one spectrum of like the parent that cares so much. And then there's the other spectrum, and I'm not saying that they don't care, but in my experience in the world of sports, no matter what sport you're talking about, I happen to spend a lot of my career in football. But I've seen so many parents who they genuinely wanna connect with their kids through the sport because it's a common language, right? As kids get teenagers, there's all kinds of ways in which they grow apart from their parents, but one of the ways you can communicate is through the sport. But a lot of times, especially moms, they don't understand the sport, right? So I'm so curious if that's something that you see in your community where, the parents, especially moms, want to relate, but then, they don't have the skills or the ability to know the lingo and what's going on.
Yes. I would say our community of parents, moms, dads, siblings, they all rally around athletics. If you come to one of our athletic events, I mean, we could have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 people there. It gets pretty crowded. So our moms are heavily involved. I would say as far as in like team meals, team dinners, planning the banquets, planning senior nights. But as far as X's and O's, I wouldn't say that they know much about that. They are really involved. You can come out and hear our moms yelling just as loud as our dads. But I would say something would be beneficial for our moms to get an exact idea of the X's and O's for football in particular, due to the fact that when they go out for soccer, baseball, basketball, they can understand those a little more. As far as football, 10 personnel, 11 personnel, defensive coverages, I wouldn't say that they know much of the X's and O's, but all of the behind the scenes, the moms do a phenomenal job as far as helping the teams. I would say if our moms learned X's and O's for football, it could get it. I mean, the feeling around athletics could be even crazier. Because like I said, our moms go hard for their boys. So if they learn the X's and O's, I couldn't even imagine of what that would look like.
It would be, was it Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side, right? You'd have 1,000 Sandra
Yeah,
Bullocks
yeah,
saying, "Come on."
yeah. Yeah, because at certain schools, especially now with, girls flag football, um, moms are trying to learn this, so they can work with their daughters and teach their daughters. So when I've gone to certain schools, I've seen it, parents out there or moms out there, trying to learn, and just creating that environment around the girls flag football where they're getting moms involved as well. So if our moms learn the X's and O's, I feel like that would be insane.
It'd be fire. I love it. Um, well, as we're
Yeah,
coming, as you go into each new season, like, what do you think that student athletes really need from their parents? Like, if you could give them a piece of advice, having been an athlete and seeing what you see, if you could just, I'm sure you've probably done it on a stage in front of the parents every year, but what is that one
yeah.
big piece of advice that you share with them?
I would say if you're serious about your sport,
Mhm.
um, during the summer, Saturdays, make sure that you're getting some extra reps in, as well as, school, making sure that your grades are up so you're never on a report, as well as just building a strong relationship with coaches and parents, cultivating a relationship with coaches as well, because coaches are in the building to make sure that kids reach their highest potential in athletics as well as in school. So just making a relationship with coaches, ensuring that their kid is getting some extra practice in, or helping them do some stuff at home, and just motivating them in a positive way, not in a negative way.
Mhm.
When you're having conversations about a game or anything along those lines, focus on the positive that your kid does. And if it's anything negative, spin it in a way of what they can do to be better, and not having conversations about how bad the coach is. Because
Mhm.
no athletic director hires a coach that they think is bad, and no coach is going to put a kid in a position to where that they will make a mistake, or all the best kids are going to be put on the field, basketball court, gymnastics field. All of that will be done by the coach because they want to keep their job. So just have an understanding of that, and work with the coaches to create a great environment. The best
Yeah.
teams that I've been a part of have a strong environment, from parents to coaches to water boys, water girls. Everybody is on the same page, and any negative conversation is spun to what we can do to fix it. And I would say that would be a major thing that a parent can do for their kid is always talk them up. And if there's anything that's negative, how can we spin that to be positive? What can we work on so that can be a positive as opposed to be a negative?
I love that. So, I mean, obviously, first of all, I love that you just said, "Look, we don't ever hire who we think is a bad coach." So, have that as your foundation, parents. Like, we are trying to do the best for our school as we can. But I'm curious, as you are
Yeah.
going and hiring these coaches, like, what are you typically looking for? What do you think makes an exceptional coach who not only creates phenomenal results on the field or on the court, but also phenomenal athletes as humans?
I would say, so just like parents, I look for coaches that have a growth mindset. Um, when I'm bringing them in, no matter things that I look for is I would say their core values and just examples of things that they've done. I've I brought in a coach for girls lacrosse that had no experience in coaching, as opposed to bringing in a big time coach that was known in the community. And I did that for the simple fact that that coach was coming in with strong core values, and the kids loved her. I want to make sure that our student athletes have a great relationship with their coach. So in any interview process, I have two students, particularly seniors, as well as a parent, be a part of the process. Parents, I have be a part of the process. We don't listen to much of particularly what they're looking for. I just want them to be a part of the process. I'm looking for what the student athletes want because it's gonna be their high school experience, and I want coach to lay a strong foundation. So in the past year, I had to hire out of my 24 coaches, I had to hire 7 new coaches, and 5 of them won Coach of the Year this past year, and it was their first year coaching. And I would say because they came in with the growth mindset. No matter if we lost a game, if they lost the game, coach was bringing them in, telling them thank you for what you've done. Let's get back to the drawing board and figure out what we need to do to be better, as opposed to just shouting and screaming at them. And you were able to see the change within a year within some of the programs, which is why those coaches won Coach of the Year. And out of 4 of those sports, not only won Coach of the Year, we also won league. Baseball in particular, we haven't won league in 46 years. And my first year baseball coach came in and won league and took us to the semis this year, which haven't been done in over 70 years. So I would say a growth mindset. To me, that is the strongest thing a coach can have. We're going to lose. We're going to make mistakes no matter what. But what are we going to do to get over this? And we're going to find a way to win. And coaches that say those direct things are coaches that I want to be a part of my program. Because no matter what happens with any stakeholder, I know that that coach is going to do what's best for the kids and work towards ultimately doing what's best for the program, as opposed to finding an escape or finding someone to blame.
Oh my goodness. I have to tell you, I think I got chills like 4 different times, and just hearing all that stuff it's so incredibly inspiring, and clearly you have a amazing eye for talent because those statistics probably are unbeatable. I don't think there's anyone that could top those statistics, but I'm also curious, like, you have to make difficult decisions all the time, and I would
Yes.
imagine that means that, that you're handling criticism, along with it. So, how do you handle that criticism when you know what you're doing and you believe what you're doing is right?
I would say that is still something that I'm trying to learn to work with. I ensure that I have a growth mindset, but when I hired 3 of those 5 new coaches, I had a lot of pushback due to the fact that one of the other baseball coaches that interviewed was a big time baseball coach, as well as one of the girls lacrosse coaches that interviewed was a big time lacrosse coach, and the same thing for girls basketball. 3 of the coaches that I went with had no head coaching experience, but they were on the coaching staff. So I was able to watch how the kids gravitated towards them, even when the head coaches on those teams were already there. So I will tell you that when I made the decision to hire the girls lacrosse coach, I had about 20 emails from parents telling me, demanding to tell them why I made the decision that I made. And I just tried to ignore it. I'm like, because I'm the athletic director, that's what we're going to go with. I felt like that was the best decision for students, so that's what I'm gonna go with. If it's was best for students, that's what I'll always go with. And 11 of those parents showed up on a Monday morning, demanding to have a meeting with me. So, ultimately, I was like, all right, let's get this done. I know that this is something I'm gonna have to do. So I met with those 11 parents and I gave them all of the reasons why I hired that coach. Um, and I will tell you, I was anxious the whole time for the season to begin because I'm like, this has to work for all of those sports when I was getting those emails and parents showing up. So the fact that they all won Coach of the Year and won league, except for girls lacrosse, I am, you know, grateful that, that they were able to show and display what I had already saw in them. So, I ended up winning athletic director of the year as well. So but to me, like I still haven't found a way to navigate that world because even when you're winning, you're still going to hear that, well, they should have hired this person. He should have done this. And, with 2,000 student athletes, not 2,000 student athletes, 2,000 students, 1,200 student athletes, it's a big community. So you can get bogged down by hearing some of those negative comments, hearing some of those negative, reviews of you. But, once they see the final product, I feel like now I'm like, yeah, look, that's the reason why I made the decision that I made.
Vindication. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. I mean, did you get any
yeah,
of those 11 parents
yeah.
coming back to you at the end of the season saying, "Hey, you were right"?
Nope, nope, nope,
That's
no.
interesting.
That's not something that, being in this position, I learned that's not something that you'll ever get. Um, you know, being an
Mm.
athletic director, I feel like you can be in a stadium with 2,000 people and you feel like you're in there alone, due to the fact that you're running around making sure that everything is working. So when we're in the playoffs, we had that many people in the stadium, and I'm getting pulled in all direction. There were 500 people in line. The mic isn't working. The cheese grater isn't working. These people want to get into the game, and there's no tickets. So it's just like navigating that. I feel like that's something that I need to continue to work on as an athletic director and something that I need to learn how to navigate. I've learned how to deal with it outside of work. Now I know that I need to go on a walk, I need to go to the gym, I need to reset. But as far as like in the moment, dealing with that, I need to get better at that, and I need to find ways for me to be able to navigate and handle that because it gets difficult, especially when those parents are powerful parents and are prominent people in the community.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, I feel like there's so I mean, you're wearing so many hats. There's so much pressure, especially at a high performing school that you are in. So, how do you balance? How do you find work-life balance? How do you not I mean, I think the turnover I've heard there's a statistic that, like, the turnover is kinda like a NFL running back. It's like every 3 years, athletic directors are turning over, but you've stayed the course. Like, what are how?
I would say the only reason why I've been able to stay the course is because of my experience in football. I played football most of my life, so I was used to um, what we would call, hell week, where it was like the worst week ever, but prepared you for the season. And then in college, the summer workouts, the spring workouts. So I would just say that I'm used to putting in that work. But this year, it really took a toll on me, working 50, 60, 70-hour work weeks, driving far for all of the games, going to every single one of the senior nights because you want the kids to know that you care about them and want them to be successful. Um, just doing all of that, like if you're doing it the right way, that's the reason why it's a lot of burnout. Burnout is usually a sign of an athletic director that really cared about the community and was doing all of those things. And we don't get paid for going to all those games, so that is like a morning where we're getting into the building at 7 or 8 in the morning, and we don't get home till about 10:30. So speaking with other athletic directors, I feel like that's something that a lot of us need to learn to truly navigate because a lot of other athletic directors are married with kids. So they get to like their third or fourth year. They're like, wait, I'm going to all these other kids' games, and I've only been to one of my daughter's basketball games or my son's swim events. So it's like, at what point do you put yourself first? So this is the first year in about 4 or 5 years I'm not working summer school. I'm not doing anything. Um, I have been answering some emails, but my work phone is turned off and put away until July 26th. I'll see you July 26th. I'll respond to anything major then. But I feel like that is something that, all athletic directors need to learn to navigate, especially when it comes to their wife and kids. Because believe it or not, we play. There's a tournament every year the last 3 years during Valentine's Day, and it's like, how can we navigate that for athletic directors, and how can they take that time off? Yeah,
Oh my goodness. I Yeah, it's an incredible, and it's, it's a bit of a thankless job overall. Like, you won all of these accolades last year, and not one person said, "Hey, good job." But I know that you make such an insane impact. So, like, if you could fast forward 20 years from now, and let's just say you're in a grocery store, and one of your student athletes comes up to you, he or she's married, they've got kids, and they introduce you to their spouse and kids. Like, what do you hope that they remember about you and the athletic program that you helped build?
I would say, like, believe it or not, now I won't say, like, so a lot of my students now are 22, 23, so I see them out in the community. But when I think about 20 years from now, I just want the number one thing I want to hear is that I held high expectations for them when no one else did. And I was always there for them during those tough times. So even though I held them accountable, I would still be there for them. Earlier in my career, I would, like, give kids leeway. And ultimately, when I learned, when you do that, it does not set them up for success, because life doesn't do that. So I would want them to say that I always held them to the standard, and I was always there for them and showed them love. Um, no matter what, even though I had those high expectations, you needed to meet me. I would always meet you where you were. But these are certain things that need to be done at all times. You need to be in your classes. Your grades need to be right. You need to be respectful to women, or the boys in the building. You need to be respectful to all of your teachers. You need to be respectful to admin. And I held those standards. So when I got a report that a kid was disrespectful to a teacher, especially a student athlete, because as the athletic director, someone's always coming to my office like, "Oh, hey, one of your football players ignored me when I told them to put their phone away." So it's like, I'm looking up where their class is now, and you're going to go apologize to that teacher, and you're going to turn your phone in at the beginning of every class until the teacher feels that you're in a space to where that this won't occur again. So I would want to say that, I held them to that high expectation. And I would want them to say that's where the reason why they are where they are in their life at that moment, due to the fact that everything that they went through in life, they knew that they had to have those high expectations.
I love that. I mean, you're absolutely right, because that's life, right? I mean, life is not going to be easy. It is not, I think kids think, "Oh, this is so hard right now." But let me tell you, it's a whole nother hand of cards in the real world. And by you, kind of
Yeah,
conditioning them, I feel like you're just setting them up for a
yeah,
better future and better success. Yeah.
definitely. And I feel like when I see my students now that, I had 8 years ago, 7 years ago, those are usually the conversations around, "Oh man, I can't believe I made that mistake." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you learn from it, and I'm glad to see you where you are now." And I feel like that to me is like the best experience, or as far as being an educator, creating students that are lifelong learners and critical thinkers.
So I would love if somebody's thinking about, say they're in college and they are, considering all the different paths that you could go in, but they know they want to be in sports, and maybe have a dream of being where you are today. What would be a piece of advice that you would give 18-year-old James or 19-year-old James, to help get them to where you are today?
I would say never take anything personal. As well as work hard and ensure that you build strong relationships with everyone that you meet along the way. Um, I feel like that's been one of the most important things that I've learned personally on my journey. So I definitely ensuring that in this field you don't take anything personal. So when I look online and I see, let's just use an example, the Dallas Mavericks, the guy who traded away Luka Doncic. When you look online, you see everyone is just like dumping on him at all times. It's like you don't know behind the scenes what occurred. And, been the position as a person, as an athletic director or anything that oversees coaches or players, you have to make tough decisions and at all times no stakeholder is going to know all the behind the scenes of what occurred. So ensuring that you don't take anything personal, take everything with a grain of salt, and always, keep your focus on the vision and what are your core values and sticking to those. Making sure that whatever you do is not necessarily what's best for yourself, but what's best for kids if you're in a position of power, and ensuring that you take care of yourself. So those are the things that I would say that I tell kids that come shadow me, because we do have kids in middle school that say they want to be an athletic director. So those are things that I tell them at all times, and I let them know like, hey, this is a thankless job. You don't expect a pat on the back, um, but expect for someone to send you an email if something does go wrong. And that's part of the job. So when I say don't take anything personal, understand that that's a part of the job. That's what you signed up for.
Yeah. I think that's such an important message that I want everyone to hear right now is that you probably, like, were listening to this conversation with James and I, and you're thinking, "Oh, yeah, I had this really great teacher, this great coach," and you have fond memories, and like James said, those you don't typically get the positive reinforcement, you typically get the, like, "Oh, my kid didn't get playing time," or you hear the bad things, so I
Yes.
want to encourage everybody to reach out to that person who impacted your life, a coach, a teacher, a mentor, your parents. I don't care who it is, whoever helped shape you in any small way. I think that is a phenomenal just piece of action. Go do it. Write a letter, write an email, pick up the
Yeah.
phone, call the school, get their contact information, and just let them know. Because it's what matters. I mean, I'm assuming that's all that matters to you, James, is how many lives that you're impacting.
Yes, yes. I feel like once I got to the point where I thought about that one day, um, I feel like that's enough for me. I don't need anyone to, like I said, it's a thankless job, but when you go to senior nights for girls basketball and you've watched those girls come up, since the 8th grade, and like, just the satisfaction of them telling you, like, "Thank you for doing this for us." I mean, not necessarily the parents or not necessarily, like, setting up the entire season, but it's like you've you've created lifelong memories, not only for this student, but for their siblings that came to these games, their parents that came to these games, their grandparents. And then seeing someone that didn't play that much make a shot or score a touchdown their senior night, that's something that their family is gonna remember forever. So just me knowing that I was a part of that and I worked, to set that up, I feel like that's enough for me. Because when kids talk about memories from high school, it's always a dance or, a sporting event or something along those lines. So to think that a school of 2,000 plus students graduating, 5 or 600 students every year. The fact that I'm a part of those kids' memories, that's enough for me.
I love it. Well, on that note, James, thank you so much for giving us probably 100 different amazing nuggets of advice and inspiring us in such an incredible way. I will thank you. I will thank you for doing the job that you're doing and impacting thousands of lives. And I just so appreciate you for being on this earth and doing what you're doing. So thank you for spending the time with us.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for all the great work that you do as well. I'm truly honored to be a part of your podcast.
Wonderful. Well, till next time.